at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. We come to you live every weekday evening at midnight Eastern, 9 Pacific, and we have a conversation about guns for about an hour. We run it live on YouTube. We simulcast it over at gunchannels.com, which is a community focused on firearms. We make this an effort in new media, so it's a conversation that we have with the people watching live, with the hosts of the show here, and with the people that watch the show or tune in after, either on the YouTube or on Gun Channels or over on the iTunes or one of the other platforms. We've got hosts. We got Clover jumping in from Texas. Thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks for the invite.
And we've got Cycle jumping in from Connecticut.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the invite.
You bet. I'm down here in Tucson, and we've got all kinds of people out there starting off the day with 9 people watching. Ghost, if you want a link, let me know. I see Olden Ellis is out there. If he can hobble his way over to Gun Channels, he can have a link as well. Threw out some other links, so we've been kind of changing the format up a little bit, so if people want to jump in, you're welcome. Today is Thursday, so we typically talk about training and stuff on Thursdays, but yesterday's show, did we not do a show yesterday, or was it abbreviated? So I pulled some of the stuff over from yesterday's show, and
so it's a twofer. It's a twofer tonight. Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying I'm gonna, since I didn't have a topic for training, I'm gonna grab that one and shove it down in the schedule. But yeah, if we have some other training topic, Clover just had a show. It's kind of interesting. Like I said, I didn't jump into I wasn't there for the whole thing, but I guess the gist of it was the channels on the YouTube that are of the marijuana topics, either medicinal or recreational, I guess, in the jurisdictions or the localities where it's legal, are getting kicked off of YouTube, and just the dynamics there. So I don't know if we want to talk about that. Matt's, our Yankees chat was tonight, right?
Yeah.
Talk about some things there, and then of course we had early watch this morning. Had some interesting stuff there. I've noticed that a little distracted. I've been throwing out links, but also I've been trying to figure out what's going on with yesterday's show. It's 29 minutes long, and I'm almost positive yesterday's show was longer. So I think what they might have done, because there's still a beginning and an end, but I've been jumping around in it. Didn't we show like a portion of somebody's video yesterday, or maybe even twice? I get mixed up because I'm doing the early watch also in the mornings, and I know we've been doing the same thing over there. But I'm thinking they might, instead of just killing your whole show, is it possible that they're just using the robots to snip out the pieces that they think are copyright now out of a live stream as it renders?
That's interesting. They certainly could.
There's a beginning and there's an end.
Oh, you had a really short show yesterday because you didn't have any co-hosts.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh,
I got there.
I had one the other day.
Late.
Okay, okay. Well, then that's just a normal show. So I'm thinking
you're fine.
2 shows ago. Okay, yeah. Like I said, it was just freaking me out because I've seen it before where they don't render all the way, and you don't, it starts half an hour into the show or it ends 20 minutes before it ends. Okay, right. So I'm gonna quit dealing with that. Ghost jumped in as well, and like I say, we're on episode 574, and I don't know. You know what? I'm going to change it up a little bit today because I can. And we don't usually do gun history till later on, and it kind of gets blown off or hurried along sometimes. And I think today was an interesting one. Let me go double check. Yeah, today was not the most interesting one, but we had the United States versus Miller. Maybe we could talk about that one. That was a couple of days ago.
Ooh, that's a good one.
The 17th, 2005. Does anybody remember what happened May 17th, 2005? 17th is today or yesterday, depending on where you are. If anybody remembers trying to buy an AK at that time, it was very difficult, and that's because Venezuela bought 100,000 Kalashnikovs from Russia. So 100,000 Kalashnikovs went down to Venezuela, and yeah, living peacefully and happily in Venezuela ever since, right?
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure all the little people have them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey! I resemble that.
Along with plenty of food to eat and toilet paper and a lot of other things that are plentiful. Yeah.
So looking at the other stuff in history today in 1860. Now this is May 18th because of the thing I look at switches in New York, I think. So anyway, Abraham Lincoln nominated for president today in 1860.
In 1756, after a year and a half of undeclared war, Britain declared war on France, beginning the French and Indian War. Today on the 17th.
French and Indian, so they declared war, but like in India?
No, because England was trying to conquer Canada as well, which was mostly a French holding at the time.
Okay.
And
how many guns do you have from the French?
On the side of France.
Have any guns from the French Indian War?
I don't think so. 1700? I kind of doubt it. Those would be flintlocks, I would think.
Mm-hmm. You don't have any of that stuff? You have cartridges mostly?
I have percussion rifles from I have a Kentucky rifle from back then, but I don't have a flintlock. That's one of the things still on my list.
Flintlock or maybe wheel lock? Where'd that come?
A matchlock, wheel lock.
Whole bunch of locks and then flintlock one, right?
Yeah.
Right.
1980. Who remembers May 18th, 1980? We were all alive then, I think.
18th.
After grumbling for 2 months, Washington State.
Mount St. Helens?
Yep, erupted 3 times in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Ironically, Hawaii is erupting right now, and they say that the government's not controlling the weather. It's just too similar, and it also proves a flat Earth, right?
Oh yeah. Sure.
Otherwise, nothing else. So that's a little different. Throwing the gun history out there in the beginning, and yeah, Venezuela has 100,000 AKs.
Well, I think that the biggest one was the Miller. I mean, when the Supreme Court said that it does, it is constitutional to regulate. I mean, that was huge. That was a huge thing, that it was not unconstitutional to regulate the NFA. I mean, that was huge.
I think so. I mean, like I said, I don't know if it's like a linchpin, but it's significant.
Well, I would imagine that most of the legislation these days is based off of that decision, though, wasn't it?
A lot of it.
Well, didn't the decision come down to something to do with military grade? And I can't remember how it was. Can't remember how it was exactly how it was worded, but
yeah, Miller was the one that was trying to have. He had a sawed-off shotgun, and the NFA said that you can't have sawed-off shotguns, and the what do you call it? They validated the ability of the NFA to be used to control firearms, but it's also, that was the one that also said you can have arms as long as they were in military use, because the reason they said the sawed-off shotgun was illegal was because it did not have a military use. It was not used in the military, which is true, because the shotguns used in the military were 20 inches or higher, and that was part of the NFA's ruling. So it was kind of a two-edged sword. They said, "Yep, it's okay for us to regulate certain weapons," but they also said that the public is entitled to have the same weapons as the military has, and that logic is now 180 degrees out nowadays. Right. They don't want you to have anything that the military has, and I find that quite interesting because there is legal precedent that says we are allowed it.
So I posted it on Instagram and got some interesting responses here. And I noticed that something about what gun policy I thought said in here. And maybe I'm crazy. Well, he said that's not the test, and this guy had said it's the same ground we can use to dismantle or whatever common military use. Oh, I guess okay. Anyway, maybe that doesn't help at all. But I think it's interesting because everybody claims it as justifying their position, and that's because it is crazy example of how words work, right? So we were talking about this sometime yesterday, but the quote or to the actual opinion or whatever, the decision is worded in two parts, but the first part is not unconstitutional as an invasion of the reserved powers of the states. So who doesn't even know what that's not even mean? I don't know what that is. It's just a bunch of words. So somehow that is
well, what they were trying to say was that the National Firearms Act stepped on state rights.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what it sounds
so,
like.
And as such, it was an unconstitutional law because it stepped on the rights of the state to control stuff that's not directly granted power to the federal government. And so basically what they were trying to, that whole bit about the states' rights thing was them saying, no, this is not a stepping on the states' rights. How they figured that out, I'll never know, because it seems like it is to me too.
Well, it says here that that's how they, I guess, got around it then. So you're saying it's not, the NFA is not unconstitutional, so it is constitutional.
Well, they said that. I'm not saying that.
Well, no, but I'm trying to read this then. So it's saying it is, they're saying it, the whatever, this is the court under Justice Rick Reynolds, right. Says that the NFA is constitutional because it is not reserved power of the state.
Yes, it's because it's not a power reserved to the state. It was okay for the feds to pass it, which is exactly opposite the Constitution. The Constitution says that a power not specifically granted to the federal government is reserved for the states.
Right, and they're trying to say that it doesn't violate the Second Amendment, and then it references whatever, P307, whatever. I guess they say the attorneys for the United States argued that the NFA is intended to collect revenue, therefore it's under the jurisdiction of the Department of the Treasury. The defendants transported the shotgun across state lines, therefore it's interstate commerce. The Second Amendment protects the ownership of military weapons appropriate for use in the militia, whatever, that doesn't really matter for what we're talking about, and that this is an NFA item that wasn't used in the militia. But I guess what they're trying to say, though, is that since it's an interstate commerce issue, it's a government or it's a federal issue and not a state issue. Is that what they're trying to say?
Aren't they using that? Aren't they trying to use that too now for stuff like within a state? Like if this is NFA item is manufactured within a state and it doesn't ever leave the state, then the NFA doesn't come into play.
Correct. That's the Montana law, and a lot of states have constitutional, constitutional suppressors, constitutional short rifles. The problem is that it has to, or the issue would be, the technicality would be if you're a federally licensed dealer, you have to oblige by those rules. So you can only partake in that without being a licensed dealer.
So you'd have to build your own, is what you're saying?
Or be a company that never got FFL from the feds, so that way you wouldn't have any obligation to that. It would be like asking a federal agent to do something with a state ignoring marijuana laws. Like their job is to not ignore federal marijuana laws, so it'd be a tough position to be in.
Yeah, right.
And it's all totally that whole piece of reasoning is totally bullshit, because the NFA regulates even people from building their own. You cannot build a short barrel rifle legally in the state, even if you stay inside the state.
Yeah, you can't be in possession, no matter where you acquire it or where it comes from.
Exactly. So their use of, basically what they tried to do was they tried to get the NFA, they tried to portray the NFA as being part of commerce laws, intrastate commerce, which is totally bullshit.
Yeah, because it's a tax, because they added that stupid tax. They're saying, hey, this isn't a federal law that violates the Second Amendment. This is simply a tax. You can do whatever you want. Here's the rules, and just make sure that you follow the rules so that you pay your tax. All they did is define some things. All they did is say you got to pay some taxes. And I guess that's what they're saying is this isn't an infringement. It's just a way to pay for the taxes. So I do think that it's worth scrutiny. One of the projects I've been working on is 2A history project, and this is one of the reasons for that. This is a difficult one to decipher, and I don't think we should be trying to do this on our own. I can tell you after probably 8 years of experience of having conversations like this one over the years, it's developed about as fast as it could if we had the insight of some attorneys and some researchers and people with insight on this, authors maybe who have already done research. I don't have the time to read some of the books that I know are on this subject matter, but we could have people on who have. I suspect bloggers who do a lot more time reading and thinking, it seems like, getting their words correct on paper. I suspect they would be a good resource to have. That's why I'm trying to get those kind of people onto gun channels. So this is a continuing effort. And the reason we have the history portion of this show, and the reason I do the stuff on Instagram and whatever, is so that we don't forget this stuff. And as content creators and people out there, it gives us something to talk about around the water cooler, and some ideas to have a live show about, have a conversation, do a video about, a video response, just do a video saying, here's the thing, what do you think, in the comments. What does that do? It creates a video for you, pretty low maintenance, pretty easy to create video. It gives your viewers something to talk about, because who just wants to sit around watching? Give them something to ask, to talk about. And then it creates a bunch of comments on one of your videos, which the little robots that run YouTube love. They love to see when a video is getting a lot of commotion. That validates your channel, and that gets you recommended to more people as they watch. So I think it's a win-win. And if it gets your audience talking about it, and then they go over to the next video and have a conversation about it, it's hopefully enhancing their ability to have conversations in real life with people. All right. So that was throwing gun history at the beginning of the day. Give us some feedback on that. We have an email, dailygunshow@gmail.com. I don't see Edge out there anymore, so we're going to feature Edge tonight. I've been doing a lot of work on the cartoons, working on basically taking an illustration or a picture, I guess, and drawing lines on it, and then going in and coloring in those lines like it was a coloring book. And Edge is a big help with all of that stuff. I wouldn't be able to do it without his input and his assistance. So he does a show every Friday. He jumps into chats quite often, more often when he's, it's just like everybody. When he's got more time or less time, he's here more and on. But a good guy, lots of experience down in San Antonio. So another Texan, and been around gun channel since the beginning.
Yeah, and he does his show as well, right?
Fridays, Edge of the Week.
Edge of the Week, yeah.
Yep, Edge is a good dude.
Yep, at one time I had a Friday show. Actually, one time I had a Thursday show, and I got corked, so I moved to Friday, and then Edge corked me. So,
don't you have some sort of seniority over that or something?
No, got no respect at all.
No, YouTube is like the airwaves. No one has possession of any particular frequency or time slot. Sort of sucks.
Let's see. Let's move along to whatever happened to Starshot. Does anybody know what Starshot is? Is this one of your questions?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit yesterday when I was doing it solo, and I never heard of it. You guys ever heard of it? You know what we're talking about?
I have no idea.
Clover?
No, no.
So Starshot is a particularly interesting way to shoot clays, and basically what they do is they set up a metal framework in a half circle. It's very tall. It's like 50 or 60 feet high, and it's divided into it's either 3 or 4 quadrants, and then each of those quadrants is built is in 3 different sections. And the object of the game with Starshot is the thrower can throw a clay in each of the 4 quadrants, usually right in the middle of the quadrant, right? So you can see it on the picture there. And the object of the game is there are a couple of different ways to play. One way is you have to shoot it in the actual segment that it goes into. Another one is whoever's fastest on the draw and can shoot it. The lower you shoot it, the more points you get.
Oh.
And this actually was a very popular TV. I remember watching this as a young adult, because now I'm an old fart adult. But I used to watch this as a young adult, and what they used to do, there was actually a show called Starshot, and I think it was on one of the outdoor channels. And what they would do is they would pair a celebrity with a known shooter, and some of the celebrities were really good. Yeah, it was a big surprise, and they had women as well as men celebrities shooting with them.
So it's throwing vertical, kind of like a teal in sporting.
Yes, it's throwing it straight up in the air, along the center of each of those little sections.
Right. So it's not necessarily moving away from you. It's just
it's going straight up. Yep.
Yeah.
This red thing here is the thrower, and it's just throwing up like spokes or like the arm or the hands on a clock.
And in this picture, you can see the guy hit one in section 3.
Why does it look like the Death Star exploding?
Because that's a stop action fixture of what happens to a clay when you hit it with shotgun shot.
All right. So it's not like a special type of thing that it's just a regular.
No, they use regular clay birds, just like you'd use for trap or skeet or sporting clays.
And this gives you some idea. I think this other picture had a little bit better. Had a little bit better scale, right? Like it's pretty tall, and you're looking at
big,
and you're not very close to it. So I guess this is the handicap. You get closer.
You got me on that one.
I don't know what these little things in the grass are, but then it looks
I've only been to one star shot range, so.
And it looks like they got them sitting in like a cage, so that way there's like a physical barrier to like moving your shotgun into the crowd or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty standard for shotgunning to have the stall like that.
And there were times that it was a single person shooting, and there are times when there's two people from competing teams shooting at the same time. And I don't know if they ever did doubles. I don't know if this is a straight single. We never shot it as anything but singles because it was so friggin' hard. We never got to the point where we could shoot the doubles.
So you're saying one person from each team would stand there. Somebody would pull. You wouldn't say pull. It would happen, and then the first one to hit the thing won.
You could say you could yell pull, but you didn't know where it was going to go. You didn't know which quadrant it was coming up in.
Okay, and it's just the faster your reaction time, the more score you get.
So you got more points for hitting it in, the lower set here, 10, 12, 5, and whatever the hell that thing says on the outside. And, but the higher up it gets, the fewer points you got. And, of course, if you shot it past the edge of the machine, you didn't get any points at all.
So it says, the real question you had then was, whatever happened to it? I'm going to say the contraption, right? Too big.
Well, the one that we shot was actually not portable. The one that I shot, there's a shooting range about 20 miles from my house that actually has one of these installed.
Now, is it sacrificial? Is it like metal so that it withstands getting shot all the time?
Yes, it's made out of metal. And remember, you're shooting it with like 7.5 or 8 or 9 shot pellets, so you don't really beat it up that bad.
Yeah, and it's rounded metal.
Yeah, it's like
it's round pipes, so you don't get a good straight shot at it. Yeah. But it was a hoot. I shot it a few times, and it was a blast. And it was a very interesting thing to watch on TV.
All right. So whatever happened to it? Let's see if anybody out there is saying anything.
Anybody out there ever done it? I mean, I've done it a couple times. I just want to know if anybody else besides me has ever done it.
I've never even seen it. Like, I haven't even seen like an old relic one sitting in the side of a range, I don't think. Of course, I wouldn't know what I was looking at. I might have thought it was an irrigation thing or something.
Yeah. Well, now you might, if you're driving by a skeet field, or a clay field, and you see this big round thing out there, now you know what it is.
Well, here's the thing too. Like, this one is in this cornfield or whatever this is, right?
Yeah, so that's a portable one. Yeah.
I'm guessing though that this is the kind of thing where when you got more birds in the area, it's probably a bigger thing. Like, I'm in Arizona. There's some upland birds here, but there's not migratory stuff really, and there's no big birds. Nobody's feeding themselves with birds out here. This might be more of a thing where you guys have tons and tons of birds flying around.
I think the enjoyment of it was it's very difficult to do, but it doesn't require the space that sporting clays require. Sporting clays is a lot of fun. I've never personally shot it, but I've had it described. But it takes a lot of area to shoot sporting clays.
Yeah, you're very limited at your fallout. Your fallout for for your lead shot and for all of that stuff. You're very limited because you're not all over the place like sporting clays or a real wide area like you are with what am I thinking? With like skeet or trap, right? Or this being vertical, I think all of that stuff kind of is in a more confined area, maybe.
Skeet is bigger, but trap is smaller.
This would be like vertical trap in a way. It's sort of like vertical trap.
I think that's a good way to look at it. It's
but it being vertical, your clays are not spread out a further distance like trap would be, right?
Well,
right, they don't fly as far. Yeah.
The bird is the thing moving, so that's the other thing is you don't need the big like court or whatever you call it, the like big cement pattern in the ground. You can just set this up wherever and start shooting.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. And you shoot from a fixed point. Yeah.
Have you guys shot 5-stand?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Because that would be kind of similar where you're standing in one spot pretty much and then just shooting at craziness. There's a little less craziness, I guess, just more speed.
Everybody shoots 5, then you rotate again.
5-stand, the stuff I've done is like it's like a scaled down sporting clays almost.
Yeah, exactly. Sporting clays where you're standing in one spot so they have to walk around.
Yeah. Well, when we shoot trap with 5 stands. And everybody takes 5 shots, and then we rotate, and then everybody takes 5 shots, and we rotate.
Oh, no, 5-stand is a whole different game. You're standing in one spot. I think there might be a couple of stations, but you're standing in one spot.
There's 5. That's why it's called 5-stand.
Okay, and then you basically, that's your whatever your run is, you'd stand in each of the 5 spots, but there's like 8 or 5 different target throwers, and it's like everything in sporting clays. There's a up in the air, there's a towards you, there's a up and down. Mixture. There's a jumping it on the ground like a rabbit.
Oh, okay, but you don't move around like you do in sporting clays.
You stand.
You move like trap. You move like trap, but you shoot birds like sporting clays.
But it's nowhere near as big as trap. It's only 5 little positions, and they're just standing next to each other.
Yeah. That's true. But I mean, you move left or right. That's what I'm saying.
It's all doubles, so it's all about clicking. It's like sporting clays faster, and you don't have to go.
Well, what do you call it? Star shot takes up a lot of room because that. It's really tough to tell how big that is, but that red little thing at the bottom is probably 7.5, 8 feet tall.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was saying there's not really a good way to show the perspective because this is pretty far away, and that guy's
you can see the trees in the background though. It kind of gives you an idea.
Yeah, how much taller they are than the trees? You mean? Yeah.
Well, that's hard to tell from the perspective of the camera, though.
It's not against the tree line, but it still kind of gives you an idea. It's pretty doggone tall.
You could just take your shotgun to the nearest fair and shoot at the Ferris wheel.
That's true. It actually has the same exact patterns and stuff in it. And if you shoot the people, you lose points.
Well, you shoot before you hit the people. You got to be good.
Yeah, you shoot the bulbs that are on the sides of the.
Oh, there you go. You got active targets for at least the first couple of rotations until they run out.
But that's why I asked about it because it was something that I did a few times when I was younger, and I really enjoyed it. And then it just kind of faded away, and I wondered if anybody had ever seen it or had ever done it.
Well, what if you did it with a Ferris wheel, but you did it in reverse? You put somebody in the bucket, right? And the Ferris wheel took off, and at some random point, they just drop a clay, and you got to shoot it before it hits the ground.
Make it a Ferris wheel. We'll put throwers in the seats, so the throwers are just like throwing shit all over the place, and you're shooting all backwards and up and down. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, that'll work.
Like this isn't difficult, like it ain't difficult enough. Let's just
swing it out to the parking lot.
I mean, I might start going to fairs again.
All right.
Yeah, it's much more fun than trying to punch the star out of the middle of the paper.
All right, well, cool. That was a neat thing to see a new sport. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I like being old and learning new stuff that I never even heard about before.
Yeah,
I kind of considered it the sporting equivalent of the movie of the day, something that people might not have ever seen or done that they might be interested in someday.
Now I'm curious if there's some way we can figure out if there's like sporting clays in Tulsa, because that would be a fun thing to do if you've never done it before. It's just a fun way to go. It's
Yeah,
like,
I've never done it. Yeah.
Sit around BSing and walking around. Good way to spend the afternoon. But they got to have them in Oklahoma. It's got to be. There's all kinds of birds hunting there, I got to assume.
I see 2 within decent range of Tulsa.
Oh, right on. Actually, we got to start talking about that Colt Museum too, because
Tulsa Red Castle Gun Club and Tulsa Gun Club. So, yeah.
Well, since we're talking about a gun club, let's talk about our gun shop of the day. So one of the reasons we started doing this show on the daily, 500 something episodes. We're going on 600 episodes ago, so we can talk about a gun shop every day. And we're recycling some from the tour last year. And I think this one actually is from, we already talked about this one. So we're going to have to pick one from you guys. This one is from Rupan the other day. So Clover, you haven't been on in a while. What's your favorite gun shop? What's featured?
Full Mag Sports in White House, Texas, probably. I think their website, I think is going to be a static. Yeah, it's not going to be that good, I don't think. So their Facebook is probably the better. That's what I'm saying. It's one of them. What do you call it? Out of the box, whatever.
So a lot of times the shops will hook up with a distributor, like
yeah, that's done by what Gearfire, I think the company Gearfire does those sites.
A manufacturer sends out guns to a distributor. These distributors get the guns to the gun shops, and they kind of hold them in warehouses and help distribute stuff out and whatnot. And somewhere along the line, maybe 10 years ago or more, they all figured out, hey, these gun shops are struggling with online presence and shops and things and getting raped, really, and then having to deal with all the BS of being a gun thing on the internet as far as business or as far as doing stores and stuff. So anyway, some of these distributors started setting up stores, and that's when you see these things that have basically every product you've ever seen before, and it's all in stock. You know they don't have that in the store. It's because they're hooked up in sort of a drop ship type of thing. You buy this, it gets shipped from whoever has it, and the store gets a little credit. So
yeah, they're able to actually, with that one, I mean, I know how that one works, but they're able to actually set their percentage, their profit percentage stuff and all on it. So
yeah, so it's a way the shops can participate in the whole online thing. So it's a way to use your shops to get stuff. And then, of course, it'll probably get shipped to the store, and you just go fill out your FFL stuff. So do they got some pictures of the shop in here, I'm guessing?
They should, yeah. Yeah.
Looks like they do.
Oh, yeah. Fairly often they sell. They're a distributor for the Green Mountain grills, which is the one I use, the smoker I use. And pretty often on Saturdays, they will like smoke sausages, or like they're doing sausages and a cheese tortilla, or they'll do ribs, or they'll do pulled pork, or they'll usually smoke some kind of stuff and have it there for people that come out.
You know, somewhere in Pennsylvania, there's somebody going, look at all them hot dog sandwiches on a stick.
Right.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, that's some good stuff.
Looks like they went to SHOT.
Yeah, that was a lot of stuff from SHOT. I'm trying to see. I don't see any. Where the crap? That's them at gun shows. I see. Advertising their feeders. They sell on-time feeders. That's a picture of their shop with the silencer booth thing there. Not a really good one, maybe. But to the right. Well, that one is too. No, that's not. That's a gun show.
Was it say that looks like a gun show or something?
Yeah. The one right there. Yeah, the one with the silencer shop kiosk. Yeah, you can't see a whole lot. I've got some pictures out there on my phone.
You get the feel that it's a kind of shop that's been around for a while. It looks like stuff all over the place.
Yeah, they do. They do all types of gunsmithing. They do ammunition manufacturing as well. So you see a lot of the reloading stuff. That's why. Yeah, that's a lot of pictures from the shop there. So finally, or product anyway.
Cool. And they just have the handgun sitting out on the counter like this all the time.
Oh yeah, and then several other places around. But yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Pretty nice. Well, it's nice if you're busy or something, you can fiddle with it or take a look at, see the size right away. It's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you don't really have to ask to see anything. It's pretty much all setting out and around.
Pretty cool. And it looks like they're fairly active on the Facebook. We'll go back to home here. and looks like
Yeah, they were at NRA not long ago.
almost 1,000 likes, which isn't nothing to smirk at for a local shop. Pretty cool. Right on. So every day we try to feature a gun shop. Today it's Full Mag Sports. If you ever want to recommend a shop, we appreciate it. You can email us, dailygunshow@gmail.com. When I get the shop or shows like that, when I get gun shops to feature on the show, we also put them over on the website we've got there to archive all the gun shops. And it's all an effort, for if someone a human being does find it, great. But it's really an effort to help these shops out who don't have budgets to throw links out on the internet, and they're all trying to get get themselves recommended when someone looks for a gun shop in their area. So these are all efforts to help these shops out for that kind of stuff. It's training. So did anybody come up with a training topic at all? Time-wise, I forgot. We started a little bit late because of somebody was quirking us. So I forgot what time we actually started.
I tried, but we all got stoned. We all got stoned on the cannabis speech.
You started almost exactly at 12:30, so you've got 24 minutes left.
Oh, okay. So we got a little time if we want to hit a training topic. I've been looking for a corncob pipe because I've been rolling my own cigarettes here. I ran out of money, and I got this tin of American Spirit, right? So I'm rolling my own cigarettes all the time. But I talk to Clover all the time, and he's smoking that pipe. So I went to Walgreens to get a corncob pipe, and they don't sell pipes anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so I'd go to one of the tobacco shops, which is the word for head shops around here. So I don't know when they're open. So I went to this one that's like more of pipes and cigars and magazines, and they were closed. But they had a big ass sign up there that said they had the CBD oils. So that means you can get that CBD stuff without being some kind of medical marijuana card or whatever.
Yeah, they used to make the Laredo. Remember the Laredo? My sister used to make her own cigarettes with that when she was young. And it came as a kit. You had kind of a plastic thing with a slider on it. And you had
the tobacco,
papers. Yeah, and you use rolling papers. And
I had one of them deals. The thing I had was more like you buy like this carton of little tubes, and the tubes had filters in them. But that was like having a big box of stupid tubes, and they would get broke or they'd fall out of there. They're sort of fragile. And
pipe is too easy.
Yeah, pipe just sounds so much easier.
But if you've got to be careful. Cigarette tobacco burns hotter, so it's gonna burn your pipe out a whole lot quicker too.
That's why I was thinking those corncob pipes last time I paid attention to them, they were like $2. So
yeah, you can get
fairly
cheap. Yeah, you can get them pretty cheap. Yeah.
And you can shove a filter in where the mouthpiece attaches to the corncob part. Right, so now I can stick a filter in there because
it's not much of a filter, but yeah.
I don't care. It's better than rolling these things without a filter.
Yeah, right. You can actually get. You can get. Where's the Missouri Meerschaum is the name of the company, and you can actually buy corncob pipes by the seconds. That they got some kind of little flaw in them. And you can get they're like $1 a piece. Ordering them from there, you can get like a package of 10 for like $10 or something.
I have been rolling, Bob. I'm not good at it, and then there's no filter. But mostly, I can't handle one of these whole cigarettes of American Spirit. So that's what I was thinking. With a pipe, you smoke a couple of puffs and then put it down.
Right.
All right. Well, I'll check that out. Obviously, online is probably the way to go. Anyway, I was asking about the CBD because I didn't think about that, but I remember for the dog, they were saying that isn't regulated or whatever. I was wondering if putting out there if anybody's used that for the aches and pains and if it was any good. The oils that you rub on you.
My wife does. I mean, no, it's not anything like that, but I know my wife does the essential oils. That's what it's called. So the natural, whatever, different lemon oil and lavender oil and all that kind of stuff. I mean, she swears by all that stuff. I don't know. I call it voodoo medicine. I don't know that it really works, but lots of people do.
So you're going to say that the animals that grew up in the same environment with all the plants, they're not going to work? I mean, every medicine comes from a plant. They're just extracts. So, I mean, I can see.
I don't know. I think maybe you have to believe it works before it actually works. I don't know.
Well, there's definitely mental to it, but I think that, like when you talk about being addicted to the opiates, I guess the reason you get addicted is because your body stops making them when you're flooding yourself with them, the painkillers. So it's got to be the same, right? If you take some kind of concentrated pill like an aspirin, you're gonna lose your whatever that's called.
Sure. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So then if you only ever like rub the plant on your forehead, that's going to be effective, I would think. Tolerance. You're going to have like no tolerance, so you're going to kill your tolerance. But if you were not taking the pills all the time, I don't know. Now we're getting into hippie medicine. So any other training topics though? Any kind of herbs or ointments that you use when you're out shooting?
Actually, Clover and I, we had some conversation in our chat tonight about going to the range, and if you're talking about on a self-defense shoot, does anyone train with their eyes closed, or do you train with just a point and shoot when not really picking up your sights? I mean, it's an interesting way if you're looking at a 10-foot shot versus a 30-foot shot. A 10-foot shot, do you really have to acquire your sights in a self-defense shoot? That was a topic that the chat was talking about, which I thought was a pretty interesting one.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a topic, but I think every time I've heard the topic come up with like instructors that have been doing it for a while, justify that in court. Like, okay, so you intentionally train without, just doesn't make any sense. Like,
Right.
You find your front sight, you put it where it needs to be, and you're pulling your trigger. So, but I understand the concept of training where if you've got a range that can do it, or if you're just out in the woods and you're safe enough, you can do it. That idea that you stand up, square yourself to the target, and then close your eyes, and then draw, potentially even shoot if it's safe enough, and then get feedback by opening up your eyes, and then you get to see if you're truly like locking in, because good shooting is all about, or accuracy is consistency. Consistency
Right.
is a reproducible shooting stance, right? So if you've got a good locked in shooting stance that you can turret yourself right to what you're looking at, I think that's what I would practice more, and then use that as feedback. But I don't think I would suggest that somehow you're going to get so fluent or so familiar that you can, because now what if there's just too much that an attorney could wail on you, like,
Oh, yeah.
and
I
then
think what Chloe and I were talking is it's more for, like you said, more for muscle memory for your own personal use, not for self-defense.
And more for us, I don't think it's something you would go out and spend all day, several days a week on. It would
No.
It would just be like you said, it would be a feedback thing. And you're like, okay, well, if I'm closing my eyes, for some reason I'm pulling off to the left, or I'm pulling off to the right, or I'm doing this or doing that. And then you try to correct that, somehow in your form. And then you go back and you close your eyes a few shots again and go, oh, okay, I've overcome that issue, whatever it was.
Exactly. Yeah. Because Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I would find that, I know they try to train it, but one of the things, when I went to the Appleseed course a couple of years ago, they taught me about natural point of aim for rifles and stuff. And I didn't realize that you can do the same thing for handguns. And now when I bullseye shoot, when I take my stance, I close my eyes, circle the weapon, point it where I think the target is, and open my eyes. And if I'm not on target, I adjust my body so that I am naturally pointing to the target. But I am never on the target the first time. Never.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know about this point and shoot happy horse shit. And I've been bullseye shooting this way for 2 years now. And it's great because it keeps my groups have tightened considerably, but I just can't, But
we're talking about 2-cycle. We're talking about 10 feet, at a silhouette target too. A little bit different than some.
25 yards at an MR1.
Yeah, big difference there. Yeah.
I've got a busted chair here, so I'm sitting. I normally sit on like a stool. It's busted, so I'm sitting on a chair whenever I get lazy, and then I got my arms up, like if I'm on some kind of crazy chopper or something, right? When I'm working on the computer, so I'm in this crazy position trying to sit in a chair, at a counter, using my mouse. My arm will get all numb, right? I'll just shake it off every once in a while. So imagine, you know, you don't at the range, everything's perfect, but in real life, how do you know you're in a gunfight? One of the classes I went to one time say, how do you know you're in a gunfight? Half the time you know you're in a gunfight because you wake up on the ground with the stars fading away and somebody's kicking the shit out of your ribs, right? At that point, you think you're pulling your gun out and you think you got it, but you're all rubber wristed and now it's shooting your tire. You know what I'm saying? So I think the consistency or the fundamentals of getting that front sight where it needs to be is something that's got to be in the equation before that trigger finger goes in.
Oh, I think so too. And that's kind of what Clover and I were saying is, you know, for the people out there to say you should be able to point and shoot if you're proficient. Well, what I was saying, my argument was, is if you practice enough and you train enough and you're proficient enough, you should acquire that front sight very, very quickly. You know, you shouldn't have to just point and shoot it. You should be able to acquire that front sight quickly if you're proficient.
Right, because you're naturally going to bring it up where your eyes find it.
Right, exactly.
Now, that being said, there's all kinds of times when you don't get to do that. That's why with a little revolver, the backup, you know, the laser grip, they're awesome. And yeah, I mean, when you practice, you're practicing for crazy eventualities, and hopefully your training is worse than anything you ever experienced. So yeah, you want to take your training out to extremes, but I guess that concept, I thought you were talking about that concept of like draw the holster, pivot as you draw, and take that first shot from the hip is like, whatever they call that. Some of those guys won't even put sights.
Yeah, and that was a question I was going to ask. Do you guys actually, when you go to the range and you're actually working on stuff, do you guys ever practice shooting from the draw?
Yeah, all the time.
Good. A lot of people don't. They don't think that that's something that's a viable way to train because
Wait, are you
know,
talking
there's
about
going to be a lot of times that you, if you're in very close quarters, you almost have to shoot from the draw at some point.
Yeah,
if you're talking like I'm talking about, just draw just barely past the holster, pivot, and shoot.
Yes.
Only if I'm doing something where I'm like standing within arm's reach of the target. You know how you'll do those kind of drills to like
exactly.
And then it's more of making sure that your other hand ain't in the damn way, right? And then
almost took a thumb off one time like that.
Having the brain power to get your body moving out of the way, because that's what it's all about, is like the get off of me, like whatever, you're retreating type of shit. And that's for me, that's more of the that whatever you call that choreography is what I'm looking at more than you know, that you're talking just get it into the fucker's pelvis and get the fuck off of me.
Right.
So, like you're saying, as long as it hits the paper, you're good to go.
Yeah, I did a range drill. This is probably last summer sometime, and it was talk about close quarters, and you know, you're literally face to face in a fight, and a guy draws a weapon or something, or has a knife and is trying to stab you with it. Well, you might have to block with one arm, and then you're drawing with the other hand, and you don't have, like you said, if you're 2 feet from the person, you're not going to have time to reach out and acquire the sights. You're literally blocking something with one hand, drawing with the other hand, and you have to draw from 3 inches from your holster. So a lot of people don't think about that, but that, you know, if you're talking self-defense, that is something you probably should be practicing.
Yeah, well, they usually call that like retainment, and then you'd be presenting the gun to them. It would be
correct. Yes.
Poor to give them the gun, right? So yeah, that would be more like your retention and your
retention. You shooting from retention, yes.
That's the kind of stuff that I don't know. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you can watch and think you're mastering it and go practice it and not kill yourself and assume that you figured it out. But honestly, I think that's the kind of stuff that's the reason we recommend taking classes and experiencing it, because you'll learn stuff that you're not going to get from a single point of view perspective of a camera, most of the time edited to show you the good parts. And that usually means getting rid of some of the theory in the lecture and the fundamentals. And then the coaching, of course, you know, when you got a instructor and a range safety officer and an educate instructor or whatever, all putting eyes on you, the other squad of students potentially watching you and offering assistance. That's the kind of stuff that's invaluable. And you could think you're doing it right. You think you have everything angled right. And again, somebody from a different angle can give you much more feedback. Then go practice that. With that experience. That's sort of like the whole concept of, if you have a guitar, you're not Jimmy Page.
Correct.
All right, well, now we got that here. So, did gun history already. What do we got for gun movie? Gun Girl Radio. So this is another podcast over on the iTunes. This one's another was one of the Firearms Radio Network. I'm going to screen share here. And again, I post links to these things, but I post links to this website version of iTunes. So you can see the different podcast lists and everything, but you have to actually go to iTunes to listen to them. This is one that I thought was interesting because it's a female perspective, but it looks like it's over. The last one they have up here is from 2014. Just in the list here, they have 40 of them, but with 69 ratings. So it sounds like, just from looking at it from this angle, it was a show with a lot of participation. That's a lot of ratings, and curious. So the nice thing about iTunes, or one of the interesting things about iTunes, or any of the feeds out there, is even though the show hasn't been around for many years now, you can still go listen to 40 episodes, and maybe more. If you go to iTunes, there might be more over there. And if it's something that you can get useful information from, or just be entertained by, there's hours and hours and hours worth of information here, content. So it's neat stuff. And I don't know any of the people. If anybody's listened to this one, give us some feedback. Have you guys ever heard of this one?
I have not, no.
No, neither have I.
Just reading the thing here, it looks like it was Randy Rogers and Julie Galoob. So I don't know if they were actually running the show, or if they were like
Julie Gallo was on. I didn't realize. No, I didn't know that she was on that. That's interesting.
It by two of the Firearms most talented female shooters. So yeah, it looks like they did that effort for a while there.
Nice.
Right on. So that's the whole thing. So we try to feature some of the different stuff that's out there. Sometimes we talk about a movie. Since we've been getting back up on the iTunes, we're talking about that today. Anything you guys got going on? Any shows coming up? Projects you're working on?
Yeah, I'm going to the range this weekend, and I start up a new series, kind of doing range lessons and trying to get people to send in questions or problems they're having with their shooting. And maybe you don't see a lot of people going to the range and they'll shoot poorly, and then you want to explain to me why you're shooting poorly. So you might be helping someone. So I'm trying to start a new one where you talk about common problems that people have on the range and what are some of the common remedies to help them shoot more proficient or do different things. And I get comments on a lot of my videos saying, "Man, I'm not a very good shot. I wish I could, find someone that would help me." They might not have any instructors around, so there are a lot of people that have the same issues. So I'm trying to do that, is to point out some common problems with shootings and maybe help them understanding why possibly they're doing that. It's range lessons, so go check it out.
Can you get internet out at your range? Can you go live out there?
On my phone, yeah.
So are you thinking about doing anything like that, where it's like a live chat with like a diagnostic or?
That's exactly what I'm thinking about doing. Yes, I think that'd be kind of cool.
No, you didn't try to do that yourself?
Something out there. I'm sorry. What was that?
Is that something you can be able to do yourself, or you can try to get somebody to go out there with you?
Well, either get someone to go out there with me, or there's a lot of times that there are people already out there, and if they're okay with being, I'll always ask them, obviously, "Hey, do you mind being on YouTube or whatever?" And if they don't mind, then that might be kind of the coolest, to have someone that's actually there shooting. That even if they're shooting well, we can discuss what they're doing to shoot well, and if they're not shooting well, and maybe we can help them. And it might be just me shooting. And if I'm shooting poor, I sit there and say, "Well, I feel like I'm thumbing a little bit," or like Clover says, breathing is a huge thing. But yeah, I think the live thing would be really cool.
So I noticed you did that video. I watched that video you did about the insurance. What did you do? Like 5 different of the insurances, I think.
Yeah, I just put the 5 companies that I kind of heard of, and I'm personally looking to see. I'm with USCCA, but looking to see if there's any other ones. So those are the 5 companies that I personally kind of looked at and digged into a little bit. But yeah, I get a lot of people questioning about, is it worth it and all that, and that's a personal issue if it's worth it or not.
Well, I was going to say, I think
help people.
You did about 10 minutes there, kind of describing the kind of comparing their what costs, I guess, and then their benefits or what they offer for
Yeah,
the.
their coverages of what they offer for the cost. Yeah.
But the thing is that there's another layer to it where they're not all the same. They're not insurance. Like with car insurance, it's basically the same concept, just with different companies. These all have
Yeah.
like a different angle at it and a different some different elements. So I was going to say, if you're interested, I'd be down for doing like a follow up where we do
Oh
like
yeah.
taking a live chat type of follow up and then dig into it a
Okay.
little bit. I did a video a long time ago, and it might be time to update that one because there are new companies. But it has to do with like, okay, you get insurance for an automobile accident, big deal. It's not very many consequences. But with a lethal force incident, the issue is that if you're in jail, what they're going to do 6 months from now is of almost no consequence because you want to get out of jail today. So
Right.
that's the thing. Some of them are money up front for getting your bail. Some of them are assistance later with an attorney. Some of them are, like you mentioned in your video, some of them are will give you a list. Some of them are you bring your own. And there's definitely pros and cons to all of that. So it's definitely something that's very detailed and very kind of weird because it's not just insurance, but they kind of bank on the just calling it insurance and letting everybody just think of it as similar. And I think they've kind of all kind of just complied with each other to just not get into it.
Right.
But there's some significant differences to them, and it's
Well,
sort
there
of
are, and I don't even like the term that they use as insurance. It's really not insurance.
no,
It's more of a legal defense membership type thing, you know?
they're all some kind of different, like either a fund or like a prepaid legal or some kind of hybrid
Right.
between. And like I say, for some people, one of them is way better than another. And that's where, when we've had discussions in the past, getting into those facets, you find out like if you're single or if you're traveling, like some of these are better than others. And
Yeah.
the costs, I think, are pretty much consistent, but they have all gone up. So, yeah, if you're down
And,
with,
and and there are some that are actually kind of insurance when you're talking about firearm theft or replacement. Some of them do offer replacing a firearm or whatever. And that's the insurance side that I would say that's what people probably might be looking for. But that usually covered as homeowners insurance also. But like people use as concealed carry insurance or firearm insurance. To me, it's not insurance. It's legal protection. It's almost a retainer almost, you know?
but
No,
it's not
no.
because that's a whole nother thing. Go ahead.
Well,
People
because a
look
lot of
at
these will offer
firearm
money for
insurance.
retainers, you know.
No, but people, the whole purpose of firearms insurance is exactly the same idea as health insurance. That something happens, you need to pay a doctor, and you don't have the money to pay the doctor. Something
Right.
happens, you need to pay an attorney, you don't have the money to pay an attorney. It's exactly the same concept as health insurance.
Yeah. But
Right.
no, it was interesting because, like you said, there are so many different companies that offer different things, and but yeah, I've had a lot of people ask me about what I've used, what to use, and that was the whole purpose of doing that. Is maybe for someone who's thinking about for the first time, here are some companies, and I said there are a lot more out there to go do your own research, but here are some that I've actually done some research on.
Cycle, you were going to do the gun of the day?
Yeah, yeah. So I picked up a new gun for my collection,
Did
and
you?
thought it might be an interesting gun to do for the firearm of the day. So my strategy for collecting military guns is to try to get a revolver and a bolt action from like around World War One, and then to try to get a pistol and a semi-automatic from like the Second World War. And so in my French collection, I actually had everything except a pistol. And so I was recently able to acquire a French 1935A, which was a pistol that was accepted by the French in 1937. They still call it the model 1935, but it was accepted for use in 1937. Unfortunately, when France got invaded by the Germans, most of the pistols that were made by the French armories were then taken over by the Germans. But the only problem with this one appears to be, I mean, other than the fact you can't get ammunition for them anymore, is that it has wooden grips, and it should have had the plasticized Bakelite kind of grips on it. But it's a single stack. It's in 7.65 by 20 millimeter French long, which is a 32 caliber bullet. And this one was probably, if you go by the serial number, from a quick look that I've done, it looks like this was probably manufactured while the Germans were still in control. But I haven't had a chance to really. I've got it upstairs in the box. I just picked it up today, and I haven't.
You haven't saw it yet. Will it fire?
Oh yeah, it would. If I had the ammunition and stuff, it would. It's in actually fairly decent shape. It's got some patina, but the firearm itself is in very good shape.
I'm not big at collecting, but I would imagine that a good patina is rather valuable at times. Can it be?
Yeah, you don't want to clean them up too much. But I'm just saying it's
Right.
not rusty or pitted or any of that. So it would probably be safe to fire. I mean, I'd have to take it apart and give it a look under a magnifying glass to make sure there's no cracks in the where the breech block comes in and all that stuff. But
It's like a $50 gun, $500 gun, $5,000 gun.
That's a $450 gun. It's about a $500 gun.
Okay. And then ammo, like you said, you can't get it. Is it like literally you're not going to ever get it, or it can be reloaded?
Well, Buffalo Bore it's one of those. It's kind of one of those that people once in a while they may make a run of it.
Yep.
It's not something you find out there all the time. However, one of the reasons that I got the gun was because I was watching an edition of Forgotten Weapons, and this firearm uses the same round that one of the French submachine guns used. And Ian has been going bullshit trying to find a round that will actually cycle his submachine guns. And what he found out from Starline is that Starline has a plan to produce brass for this gun towards the end of the year. So if they produce the brass for it, then I'd be able to have my brother reload it. So I kind of got it with the idea that it'll be a safe gun until I can get my hands on some ammunition, and then I'll take it out and put a few through it. It has the grip is just phenomenal. It has a very nice grip. It's a single stack. I think it's an 8-round magazine, but it's a very nice gun to hold. So I if the barrel's any good at all, I think it'll be very accurate.
Even though, as you know, I don't think you need 8 rounds to hunt a deer. What's a 38 or whatever 32 French long? What is that, like shooting a 38 out of an auto, or is it like shooting a 32 out of an auto?
It's a 32, but it's a big 32.
So is it like back up to like shooting a 9, or this is a big gun?
It's more like a 350. It's more like a 357, but not a Magnum or a 30 cal.
Okay, so it's like shooting a 38 out of a
30 carbine. Yeah, more like a 30 carbine. Because it's not a tapered round. It's a straight wall round.
I'm not screen sharing anymore, but I was looking at these pictures, and a couple of them make it look like it's like they're rugged. Like, is this a nice looking gun, or is this like a let's get this gun and kill Nazis? Let's get this gun made, or was this like a nice we're proud of this gun, we're gonna spend all kinds of time finishing it? Because some of these look
they actually started developing it, I think, earlier in the 30s, and then the French called for a submission of people to submit different guns, and this was one they actually picked. There was a 35A and a 35S, and the 35S didn't make the cut. There was a newer version of it, but it didn't make the cut, and that didn't come around until after they had already been taken over, and the armistice was signed, and then control was returned to them. But it's a fairly nice little weapon. It's very I mean, it doesn't have the front bushing and all that shit, but it's very 1911-ish. And in fact, the Swiss bought the patent on this gun, and it became the SIG 210. So this is the gun that became the SIG P210.
So it's single action.
It's single action only. This particular gun is single action only.
And then safety. External safety, because
it has an external safety. It's kind of hard to see. It's up. It's actually on the slide.
Okay.
Right next to where the rear sight is, and it's just a tiny little thing.
Okay.
When you flip it, it goes straight up.
And you haven't shot it yet, so you'll do a video probably, and then I'm sure if you do get some ammo, or when you get some ammo, you'll do some sort of range.
Absolutely. I need to do some more research. I don't usually do a video until I do some more research, and I will. I mean, I've actually learned a lot so far, but that's only in the last day or so. And so, yep. If I take it to the range, I'll definitely be showing it off.
And that's half the fun of getting these things, especially when you're sharing stuff, because then you get to learn the stuff and then write it down and present it. And it might seem like a useless effort. Oh, somebody else already did it, or somebody's on a giant channel and they talked about it. But I find it neat to be able to go back once in a while and just look at your, like, almost like your own notes, be able to go back and see some of the stuff and, oh yeah, that's, gain some insight as to what you thought of it at the time.
Yep, really cool.
Clover, you're back. Did I ask you if you got anything coming up? You got a show tomorrow?
I do. Yeah, tomorrow is Firearm Friday, so that's 10 Eastern, and we're going to talk about ITAR.
Guitar string.
ITAR or ITAR or whatever, however you would say.
Oh, that. ITAR. Yeah. Okay.
International Traffic in Arms Regulations.
Yeah, I'll jump in if I can, if I get an invite. The just FYI, when you email them to me, I'm like, man, I don't go around checking my email maybe once a day. So
yeah, I can message it. It's not a problem.
Yeah, I'm on gun channels. But yeah, ITAR is interesting. I've had plenty of tours. Like when we did the tour of Barrett, ITAR, we couldn't do anything because I don't have any kind of relationship with them. They let us in, but we couldn't take any pictures. And then what am I trying to say? Volter here in Tucson, they're also ITAR, and except for that, I know the guy real well. I was able to get some pictures cleared, but they had to be very generic pictures. And it's way more than just a nuisance tax. I mean, it's basically protection from clandestine stuff. It's like trying to do some effort to keep spies from getting stuff. I mean, I know that is almost futile, but anyway, yeah, it might be interesting because I think there's a lot more to it than just a nuisance government thing, or at least the goal of it, or its concept or its theory is.
Well, if you can jump in, do that, because that will be some interesting addition. Because I was going to talk about the whole, the State Department for months now has been alluding to the fact, because that's controlled under the State Department, is turning that over to another agency and kind of mixing it up and whatever. And then Trump is now kind of on board, and looks like some of the gun, firearm manufacturer, ammunition manufacturer, regulatory things, may be loosened up on it. So I'm going to kind of talk about that and the effects and certain things from that perspective of it. But it would be
would be good, because it can be like a burden, and it's like
yeah, absolutely. It's keeping a lot of gunsmiths and gun shops and things like that from starting up. It's one reason I've never done the ammunition manufacturer. I would have already been doing that years ago if not for international traffic arms regulations, because that bothers me, because that's some people, they don't follow or they don't pay those taxes and do that stuff, and they do skate by. I do know people that have done that in the past, but if you get hammered for it, buddy, you are hammered at that point. So yeah. But yeah, it'd be good to know some of the other backstory into what it's all about too, from your angle there. So that'd be kind of cool, I think.
I'm no scholar on anything, but like I say, I have had it affect my tours, or just my ability to take pictures of places.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
But another one, the one that's even worse, ITAR is only when they're doing stuff internationally. More companies don't bother doing stuff internationally, and then it's ISO. I don't know if you've dealt with ISO stuff.
Yeah.
Can't take any pictures in those kind of places too, usually. Or they have to all be approved. All right, well, with that, I think we can wrap up the show. We're right around an hour, I imagine. So thanks, people, for showing up. I do appreciate it. We had 26 people watching, and last count, we had 20 thumbs up. That's a pretty decent ratio. And if you got any ideas for the show, always let us know on the email, dailygunshow@gmail.com. Thanks to Ape, I think, grabbed my 44 dies I had over on eBay that ended today. Got a couple of projects coming up on the horizon. I talked about the Minuteman project. I'm making headway on that. I want to thank the people over on Patreon for allowing me to have time to work on those. The goal there is to make it easier for all of us to understand where we're at, how we got to where we are, so we can stand on the shoulders of those that came before us and put our efforts into reaching out further, and got some ideas of what we're going to do over there. So again, thanks for the people over on Patreon that make that happen for me and everybody else who's making firearms related content out there. Has anybody got a quote that we can end on? Put you on the spot because I didn't ask it earlier.
If you can hold on just 2 seconds, I actually have one saved. It's a little bit long, but it was a very interesting quote. So let me see. So Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to Peter Carr in August 19th of 1785. And in his letter, he says, "A strong body makes the mind strong. As to the species of exercises, I advise the gun. While this gives moderate exercise to the body, it gives boldness, enterprise, and independence to the mind. Games played with the ball and others of that nature are too violent for the body and stamp no character on the mind. Let your gun, therefore, be your constant companion of your walks." Well, that was Thomas Jefferson.
The guys and gals of gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching gunwebsites.com.
I remember the day the girls came over for bridge club. I was so embarrassed because of lingering odors. Fish for dinner last night? Phew, aren't we still smoking the cigars? Christ, did a cow shit in here?